Okay, so this will only take a couple minutes. I wanted to write a virtual DOM like React, because I wanted to know how it worked. Zoom?
Zoom.
Yeah, that's the DOM. So in about 300 or so lines of code, so in here, I have about 300-ish lines of code that replicate what React does, only in a very dumb way, because I'm not as smart as Facebook engineers and I had a day. So what I did was I made a, some of you guys will recognize some of this stuff. So let's see here. I didn't prepare a presentation, so obviously. So I created a component class. You know how you extend component in React, and it has a set state method and then some stubbed interfaces for component did mount render. And then it has an internal update component method that's going to go through and update the DOM for you, just like it would in React. So if you have a state change or I mean a prop change on one of your components, so in this case I have an app and I'm creating elements instead of using JSX because I didn't want to integrate JSX, I just did JavaScript. So there's a function called create element, and then you nest children under it, just like you would a DOM code. So if you have div, this div has a header, this header on the same level has a subcomponent called subcomponent, because I'm not original. And then inside of there, it has a paragraph tag that watches the message props and the counter, a line break, and then a span inside of it to show that it doesn't update port for the DOM, it doesn't need to. So, and then I made one lifecycle method so that I can do something. So this should look pretty familiar to anyone that uses React. There's constructor, it extends component. You have a piece of state, which is just a counter. The component did mount is just a set interval that's going to every half a second, it's going to set state on the counter and up it. And each of these watches their own piece of state, whatever. And then if you look at the virtual DOM, you're going to see it doing things. It's only updating the things that it's supposed to be. So the line break and span are left alone, and it's going to continually change the DOM until I tell it to stop. And that is how React works. It just recursively walks through the elements and sees which ones change and updates them. Cool. Boom. Done.
I feel more dumb.
I feel like I better understand how to
I can show you how to move skills later.
Are those Praxent colors?
That's Poseidon.
That is Poseidon.
I guess so.
That's amazing. The troll? I love it.
Huh? Yeah, it's Poppy from the Trolls.
Hey, do the dance.
Poppy Queen.
Do the happy dance.
I want you to do a dance.
It's okay. I might want to get. I already did a dance from the lip singing of Move Your Feet from Poppy singing.
Okay, gotcha.
Go, Vincent! And you can just like me a screenshot or two for social media.
Do you have that out on repo?
Yeah. Most social media posts.
Sorry.
I didn't think
The
it
most
was
social
like,
media posts ever, huh?
Yeah.
I think you should put it
Well,
in
they're always going out, but
I'm not as
in
smart as
the
you
most
can do
concentrated
it
for sure.
We produce sales.
It's all going to good time to get out.
15 minutes apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty concentrated.
Yeah.
It's just like a naive way of saying it.
So I spent the last couple days playing around with something called Kubernetes, which if any of you have been listening to all the craziness that's happening in the DevOps, multi-cloud, automation world, Docker and Kubernetes are like the new hotness. And it's insane how much people go nuts over this stuff
How do you
in
spell
certain circles. I have no idea.
Just like it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to do is mess around, and just to give some context, Kubernetes is designed for Google scale web applications. So what I'm going to show you is really, really silly because I'm showing you like the world of Google's computers, all over the planet on a little laptop. It's really, really silly to run it on your local machine. But you do it as a developer because you need to kind of play around with it before it gets into a Google scale environment. So this is just a good way to play. I followed a couple of tutorials online. First of all, I want to do a big upfront disclaimer apology to the designers in the room. I spent almost zero time on the HTML that you're about to see, and I think I violated a couple of the rules about when to use the wave. So
I do like your very specifically named SVG file though.
yeah, big thanks to Andy for sending a couple of those over. If I have more time later, I'll make it look a little prettier. So it's more about the technology than the design at this point. Anyway, I also tried to find a couple different ways to explain kind of what Kubernetes does, and I stole these are totally stolen off of Google Images. So the basic idea is you got a bunch of people out on the internet trying to get to your really awesome application, and you get so many people trying to get to it that one server, one computer running in the world just isn't enough to handle it all. And so the next logical step is, what about 2 servers to handle that same application? So you spin up another one. Well, you have this problem you have to solve, which is how do you know like which client application or which user out on the internet should talk to which server? That's one problem. Another problem is if I have a big application and I have hundreds of servers, and what if I have, if I'm managing hundreds of applications and each application has hundreds of servers, how do I manage all of those servers out in the cloud? Well, Kubernetes is designed to allow like one person or two people or a small team to manage hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of servers. This diagram kind of shows you what it does. This is oversimplified. Here's another one that's sort of very, very oversimplified. Shows you, so the DevOps circle, that'd be like a developer playing around with this stuff. This master here, that's Kubernetes itself. That's the software that controls this big thing called a node. Sorry, Pete, I'm going to overload a term that's going to do today. This is the actual server running out in the cloud. And the way that Kubernetes works is it kind of splits things up into pods, and inside those pods you have containers. Containers is a word that comes from the world of Docker. You don't need to know too much about it. For those of you whose eyes have already glazed over, if you need like a summary for explaining to yourself what Docker and Kubernetes and all this stuff is really about, here's a good image. It's just turtles slowing down. Here's another one. Very helpful for this particular problem. You can summarize it. Anyway, on to the demo. So I got this thing up and running in my local machine, which was no easy feat, but it was mostly just following a tutorial, so I can't take much credit for it. What I wanted to show was basically the idea is you have your application that you built, and you package that up into something that is self-contained. You can move it around wherever you want. So I created a couple of these just for fun, and they're really simple little index.html files with one of our waves in them. So that gets created as a Docker image, and then that image I can now send to pretty much anywhere I want through to a server. So various commands and incantations are run on the command line, and you end up with a service that is running, that represents your application. So you notice I have like 2 of them in here. One of them is for the RAMs application, which is just hello RAMs, and one of them is for ROMs, sorry. One of them is for the Lovelace application, which is just hello Lovelace. So the beauty here is, let's say my application gets really, really, really popular, and I need more servers. Give me more power. With something like Kubernetes, I can literally come in here and click a button and say, I want like 3 of these. And I say, okay. And a second later, I now have 3 of them. You can see Lovelace is spinning up more. And if I want to see what that looks like.
And your load balancer is doing what it needs to do. So-
Yeah, so I don't want to get too far into that. It would take me too long to get into it. But basically, internally, what just happened is Kubernetes said, oh, you need more of these things. So it created what's called a pod. And that container runs inside that pod and gets its own IP address. And Kubernetes has a load balancing mode. So every request that comes into whatever that external IP address would be then gets routed to each container. Yeah, so it's pretty powerful, and you can do it with a lot of different applications all at once. Hang on. I can't remember my incantation. If you're interested in playing around with this, Minikube is the thing you can use to run on your local machine. Play with it.
Just rely on some third-party host or some third-party.
No, this is all locally. So there's Ada Lovelace.
Ooh.
Wow.
So I'm trying to find a better way to demonstrate how the